Hey, it's Cody. It's recently come to my attention that there are people actually taking my fiction book recommendations. I don't know why that's funny. That just. Okay. So I realized once I saw this that I feel like, especially the last couple months, I've shown books that I said I was going to read, and they were really, really bad. Like, okay, not one of them was really, really bad. One of them was, just bad. Um, so I figured I'd stick up my little kind of mini reviews of two books that I have recently shown and read, and I'm recommending that you not follow in my footsteps. So the two books that I want to talk about are The Night in Its Moon by Piper CJ and The House of Roots and Ruin, and that is by Erin A. Craig. So I want to talk about this one first because this one I stopped reading. I would say probably about a third of the way through. I read, let's look here, up to page 174 of 528. So this is something that I've got to change. I've made a bad decision for myself. And the first thing that I've done is decided for myself that I don't want the input of like booktube, bookstagram, book talk kind of stuff. I like to read something and then form my opinion, and then I can like go look at reviews or something. I really like V.E. Schwab's Darker or Shades of Magic trilogy, but I saw a 1-star review that said something about A Darker Shade of Magic. It said it was like eating overcooked, underseasoned chicken, and like I know what they're saying, but also I still like it. Okay, so anyway, what I'm saying is, like, if I had read that before I read the book, I would be like, oh, maybe I don't want to read this. Or I'd be reading it with an attitude, right? I like to just go into it fresh. So this book specifically is what has made me decide that I'm not doing that shit anymore. I will be looking, not even necessarily reading reviews, but just trying to, I don't know. I gotta figure something out. Because I don't want, like, people's opinions to necessarily influence how I feel about reading a book, but also, goddamn. So, the reason I picked this book up is because I have noticed at the Barnes & Noble that's closest to me, there are a lot of copies of it sitting there on the shelf. And the first thing to say, I feel like in the last several years, bookstores are kind of weird, at least the ones near me, in that they'll only have like one copy of a book. Or a lot of times they literally just won't even have the first book in a series. It'll just be like 2, 3, and 4. And they're like, oh yeah, no, we haven't had that in stock for months. I'm like, why? So this one stood out because there were like 6 or 8 copies of this literal exact book sitting on the shelf. So I'm like, is this because it's really popular and people are just buying it, so they're just putting this shit out? Like, do people like this? Are they enjoying reading this? It turns out, I think, that they had anticipated people were going to purchase it and it was not happening. So now you know, if you go to a bookstore and have a bunch of copies of a book sitting on the shelf, that's probably the reason, and not because they think a bunch of people are going to be buying, or because people are buying it, right? Okay. So, first I'll start out just saying the actual writing in this book is terrible. It's telling, it's not showing, it's sort of wandering and meandering, and there's a bunch of like weird details and places that it goes that don't make any sense. Like, my videos are very much like that, but it's not an edited, written piece of work, okay? It's just me sitting in front of my phone on like a little fucking stand, okay? Excuse me. So, this book starts out kind of interesting. So I was a little bit excited at the beginning. I was like, this is this author's first book. It was like a debut thing. Like, I'm willing to excuse some shit, right? So, these will be spoiler reviews. This one I will spoil everything that I possibly can up until here. House of Roots and Ruin will contain full spoilers. That's just so you know what we're working with. Okay. So it starts out, there's a little girl at a foster home. I think it's, no, not a foster home. It's like what's the word? An orphanage? I don't know. It's run by some sort of like church thing in this world. And there's a knock at the door in the middle of the night, so she sneaks out of her bed to go see, and like the headmistress or whatever the fuck, okay. I don't know. The main lady who runs the house goes, and it's like a guy with a basket that has a baby in it, and she's like, I'm not doing this anymore. And he's like, you're gonna want to when you see what I have for you. So the lady says, yeah, that's fine, I'll take the baby. Okay, so the lady goes to get money or something, and this random man is just standing there, and he knows the little girl is there. And he's like, do you want to come see the baby? Okay, confusingly, the baby is made of snow. So, am I actually imagining, like, an actual, like, snowman baby? Or are we just saying that she's really, really pale? I don't actually know. Okay, so a 3-year-old is looking into a basket and looks at a baby that's made of snow, whatever exactly that means, and says, I knew right then that I would do anything to keep this baby safe. Okay. All right, so we move on from this, and it's just... Okay. We weirdly find out that our main character, who I can't remember her name of, Knox, is a person of color, but it doesn't specify. Okay, here's an issue that I really hate when authors won't just be like, this character is black. Like, it makes it, trying to like skirt around and be like, they had brown skin, they had dark curly hair, but like really that's a lot of different races that people could be. Like, and it makes me feel like, have you ever met a white person that will be telling you that someone's Mexican, but they like say it like it's a slur, and they're like, they're like, Mexican. Like, that's what it feels like sitting here reading it. So that's batshit. Okay, so I'm pretty sure that our one of our main characters, Knox, is black. Now, we have like a religion that's basically the Catholic Church, but replaced with a goddess. And so I guess that these people like come around people from the church and look for these like fairy touched kids. And of course the snow baby was one of them. Okay, her name is Amaris or some shit. So for some reason, Knox's job has been to take care of, I'm gonna say Amaris, to take care of Amaris for like her whole life. And she can't do work because they don't want to mess her up or something. Okay, I don't know. It's not really that clear, and it's just poorly written. And okay, we get to a point. All right, first of all, wait, let's back up. God, there's just so much with this book that happened in 174 pages. So they want to sell Amaris to like a king or something so that the orphanage can get more money to take care of kids. So, okay, they hide Amaris from this like priest or whatever the fuck because they don't want him to take Amaris, okay? Because he's not going to pay them as much as they could get. So Knox has to like hide her and shit like that. Okay, so eventually there comes an issue where they're caught hiding, I think. So Amaris is in trouble, and the priest wants to like whip her in front of everyone, but then fucking trigger content warning for fucking racism here. The orphanage lady is like, oh no, we're not gonna do that to her. We'll do it to the black kid. So they literally have her stand there and take a whipping for a white kid. Like, who in fuck? Teams of people look at these, okay? I want, like, names of who the fuck was like, yep, that's fine. So, bizarrely, if you can even get past that, then all of a sudden this lady, who's like a madam at a brothel, sees this Amaris and wants to buy her. So there's a bunch of like swerfiness. Okay, like sex work is work, and it's painting it in a really like weird light, but also then like at the same time it's one of those things where like it's definitely abuse if you don't want to be there doing that. Do you know what I mean? So there's like this super horrible scene where the lady like makes Amaris take off all her clothes to and like checks her body to make sure that she doesn't have scars, and it was just it's just finally we get to a weird part where all of a sudden we find out that Nox is in love with Maris. So I'm thinking that this relationship has something to do with, like, sisters, but it's not. So you have taken care of a baby since you were 3, but now all of a sudden you're in love with? Man, it is too fucking much. It's too much, okay? This book is too fucking much. So I said to myself, what is this? So I do look it up online, and it turns out the first thing I find out is that this book was written during a manic episode in 6 days. Okay. I'm going to be generous and say that it was probably like first draft stuff, but Piper CJ's friend edited it, and so I don't actually know. It's not clear. So this book, there are weirdly people giving it 5-star reviews despite the atrocities, even just in the first third of this. But then apparently anyone giving it a bad review, for a while there, the author and the editor were like going after people on social media for saying things about the book that they didn't like. Like that is, oh my god. Then there's at least 2 more of this. There's like a sequel and a third one. Why? What is this? Bloom Publishing? I have so many questions about how this got to be where it is, what anyone was thinking that was involved in this project. I hated this. Hate it. Alright, that one was like just bad. Now, the next book that I wanted to talk about is House of Roots and Ruin, which I ordered this from Barnes & Noble, and it came with like colored page edges, which was kind of a nice surprise. I didn't know that was even a thing. Okay, so this book, this one is funny bad. Well, to a point. Sorry, I have notes here to try and remind myself everything I want to talk about, so I'm trying not to get on too much of tangents here, alright? And I don't want this video to be too long, but I feel like I actually have more to say about this book than the other one, maybe. Okay, so House of Roots and Ruin, I think, was kind of fucked by the time it came out, just because people on the internet had already started making fun of blank and blank for book titles, and this one just came right out with it. Okay, so this is actually a sequel to House of Salt and Sorrows. Yes, I know these are backwards. You're gonna just have to live with it. So this book got a lot of like hype around it, and I read it, and I don't know, it was okay. So this book then came out. I didn't even know this was coming out until it was out. And I don't know if I would call it a sequel. Maybe I would say a spin-off. In the first book, there were 12 sisters. It was sort of a very loose, dark retelling of the 12 Dancing Princesses. So there were 12, and the youngest one's name is Verity, and there's a part in that book where she sees ghosts. So, the story ends, and I did have problems with that one too, but this one, I think I actually had more problems with, which is weird because this is actually this author's second book now. Okay, so I would call this one probably a spin-off because all of a sudden our main character, who was 6 at the time of House of Salt and Sorrows and had a different main character, she is an adult now, 19 or 20 or something, and she is actually like the main character. Okay, again, this will contain full spoilers. I'm trying to think of content and trigger warnings for this because I meant to mention them before I talked about the other book and I just didn't. So this one we have mention of attempted sexual assault. We have possible infertility, like murder. Okay, so that's out there. All right. I'm trying to tread carefully with some of the things in this book because goddamn. All right. It's been like, I don't know, whatever 20 minus fucking 6 is, 14 years. All of a sudden, we're from Verity's point of view, and she's a painter. So she lives, like, you don't actually really have to read House of Salt and Sorrows to read this one. You could just pick this up and read it. Like, okay, so the bitch sees ghosts. And her oldest sister is making her stay at the manor, even though all the other sisters have left it or have died in the previous book. So Verity is upset. She wants to leave. And so finally she says to her sister, how come I can't ever, like, leave? Like, I want to go. I don't want to be trapped here in this house anymore. And the sister says to her, you still see ghosts, and you don't seem to be able to tell the difference between the living and the dead. Which I was like, damn, I am into this. Like, I was into it, all right? So then it springs on you pretty close to the beginning here, that like this, a maid, a governess maybe, I don't know, a lady that took care of her since she was little is still there even though she's 20 and like brushes her hair before bed and shit. I guess I don't have to keep holding this up. And so finally the older sister says to her that this lady, Hannah, has been dead for like years. Like she didn't survive the end of the House of Salt and Sorrows. You've just been thinking that she was still here. So I will say that got me. At that point I was like, oh, okay, this book could have gotten me with a lot of shit if it hadn't been overdone. Okay, so that's sort of the premise to start. She eventually somehow, some like duchess sees her painting, sees a portrait of somebody, and says, I want Verity to come to my like manor or castle or whatever the fuck and paint my son. So it's a big fight with the older sisters, like you can't leave, you can't go somewhere, like it's gonna reflect badly on all of us if you're out there looking like you're talking to yourself. So Verity, our main character, ends up disappearing in the night and heads there on her own. Okay, the writing it's overdone. In the first book, House of Salt and Sorrows, it was a lot of time spent like describing dresses and fabrics and shit, and I feel like that was one of the major criticisms of it. So it's kind of weird that this book actually is even worse, but the time it spends is describing in minute detail how rooms are decorated. It's, oh my god, the amount of shit that I skimmed in this book. I mean, it's probably a sixth of this fucking thing. It's just paragraph after paragraph about fucking crown molding and like fucking specific flowers for shit. Now there is stuff about, I think, Victorian flower language in here. I don't know if it's actually like legitimately Victorian flower language, or if it's just kind of shit that was made up in the style of that for this book. I don't know, and I don't care enough to look it up, honestly. Okay. I like that it's written in sort of like a horror way. You know what I mean? It's very... Words are always chosen, even if it's not like a scary scene, to just kind of keep that creepy feeling in. And I do really appreciate that. I feel like that was done really well in House of Salt and Sorrows as well. So, okay. Verity gets to the place that she's going, and she gets out of her carriage and she meets Alex. Now, this is the young man whose portrait that she's going to be painting, and Alex has a wheelchair. Alex fell down the stairs when he was 4, I think. Anyway, he ended up with his legs are paralyzed, and so he uses a wheelchair. So it starts right out, and we've got like romance. I mean, not like, yeah, romance kind of shit. And I'm like, this is nice. Like, I didn't even know this was a thing that was in this book because I don't look up anything about it. But having her love interest be in a wheelchair, like, that's nice. She's got the whole house, the whole, like, manor or whatever set up with, like, these steam-powered elevator kind of things so that he can get to different floors. And, like, it was just really cool, like, the inclusion of that. And I was like, damn, I said to myself, I sure hope this doesn't get fucked up. So, while I like that, as, like, a character, he was so fucking boring. There's just chapter after chapter of, like, them spending time together, and I guess it's trying to build the romance, but ultimately it's boring. She's just drawing pictures of him, and he's just talking, and, like, every... You know, like the cinnamon roll thing they talk about where a character has, like, never done anything wrong in their life? That's him. And he really has no, like... I don't know. There's nothing, like, in there. Every time he does something kind of fucked up, he's, like, automatic, like... I don't know, man, that he's constantly apologizing, and, like, it's just... I don't like that. Like, it made it feel super weird. So... Alright. As Verity is there longer, Alex's parents, the Duke and Duchess, are super cool to start out, and then she starts realizing something's weird. Because there has to be, right? So, the Duke, who I think his name is Gerard, we eventually find out that he is really into, like, crossbreeding plants, and, like, grafting them, and things like that to, like, create these plants that kind of have medicinal uses and stuff like that. So at first Verity thinks this is really cool. She spends time hanging out with this Gerard, and it's kind of cool. Eventually we get to a part where, okay, sort of, we discover that he is not only doing this with plants, he's also doing this with people. So in this universe, weirdly and very vaguely explained, there's gods that kind of hit you like a ton of bricks at the end of the House of Salt and Sorrows. And sometimes there's, like, they have half-mortal children. So what the Duke is trying to do is he wants to, like, interbreed these people and create new gods because he's sick of the old ones or some shit. So now we're like, oh, it's terrifying. But, like, also Verity, she's seen ghosts. She has a ghost show her that somebody, I think it was Gerard, or maybe his wife, I don't know, killed her, and that there were, like, these babies that were half plants or some shit. Like, it's not made clear exactly what the fuck I'm looking at, but it was creepy at the time while I was reading it, so I was like, that's fine. You know, if I'm having fun reading something, I feel like I'm less likely to ask questions like, what the fuck? So, yeah, the ghost shit is, like, suddenly, she worries about it a lot, but it's ultimately not that big of a deal. Okay. Then there comes a part where all of a sudden we find out that Alex has two identical, like, triplet brothers that were, you know, it was the three of them. But those two have been sent away. And they've come back. And they're I don't know if they're trying to, like, reclaim their inheritance or exactly what they want. It's not really made clear. And bizarrely, one of them has, like, okay, they both have magic all of a sudden, which is just weird because it felt like seeing ghosts was sort of a different thing than being able to, like, light candles. And one guy reads minds. I'm like, what? Like, where did this come from? This was not a thing that felt built into the story. And so what it ended up feeling like was, like, it didn't get wicked up into the fabric of the story. It was just weirdly sitting there on the top, like... It was so weird. It changed the whole tone of the rest of the book. It might have been about halfway through, but something about it never felt like it was actually part of the story, even though it was. I don't know how else to fucking explain that. It was like some oil and water shit. So the brothers show up, and they're like, we have to get proof that their father Gerard is doing like these baby experiments. I don't remember if it was made clear in the book how they know that. I mean, I get they were products of it, but I don't know if someone like how the revelation happened of them realizing it was their father's fuckery that made them be like this. So the dad had actually sent those two away because he didn't like their powers and kept one that didn't have powers because he realized he fucked up. So instead, it turned out what he's trying to do is he wants children from Alex, who apparently, when he fell and the accident that landed him in the wheelchair was actually him getting thrown off a balcony and not just downstairs. And like anyone should have died, but he didn't, so they're assuming he's immortal and like a god or something. I don't know, he's like a success. And so the dad wants the main girl Verity, who can see ghosts, to have a baby with Alex to see if it's like a god or some shit. Like it's just it's if you're feeling kind of like what the hell is happening, so was I. I'm still not exactly sure everything that was fucking occurring. Okay, so the romance in this was wild. This is the funniest part of this book. Okay. So, I'm trying to think of Alright. So, Verity and Alex spend a lot of time together, and there's like one time he touches her hand or something, and there's like fucking flying sparks and shit like they fucking pull in these like romancy kind of books. But then finally they kiss, and she's just like, ew, I don't feel anything. I'm like, so this happens more than once. So I'm like, wait a minute, what? So then when the brothers show up, all of a sudden there's like this sudden love triangle where she's like into the one that controls fire, but he's also a super big asshole. So they like, I don't know. There's a scene that just comes out of nowhere where they're like on a balcony, no, not a balcony, a roof maybe of the manor with like some garden shit because there's gardens and long-winded explanations of fucking plants everywhere. And where all of a sudden he's like trying to make her have sex with him. He like grabs her by her hair and shit. Like that's it. She gets away from him by telling him something mean his dad said was true, and then he lets her go. And like she feels bad about it. Good, fuck him. But like also I feel like there might have been a different way to resolve a love triangle than that, but you know, I didn't write this. So alright. I'm trying to think if I should finish up the plot. No. Yes. Okay. So basically, all the shit comes to light, and the mom gets killed. Gerard, the dad, who's the Duke, gets killed by one of the brothers. The fire brother stabs the fucking mind-reading brother and kills him. And somehow, in like during a 5-minute section, all of the guards get sent out of the castle. So suddenly, this bitch is just running wild through the castle, and like the lift is not on the second floor where they are. So Alex is stuck in a wheelchair at like on the second floor, and fucking Verity goes down to try and like make the lift go up, but he's supposed to be hiding from his brother who's trying to find him and kill him. And like Verity gets stuck fighting his grandma. And is losing. So and then Alex and his fire brother, who has just killed the dad and the other brother, is thrown over like a railing or something and falls to his death by Alex. Which I feel like we've done a pretty good job of being realistic with, I don't know. I can't believe I just said the word realistic. But I feel like it's a stretch, honestly, to say that the kid in the wheelchair who has paralyzed legs defeated his brother. Like, I couldn't even do that shit by throwing him over, like, a wall, a balcony wall. I couldn't do that shit with full use of my legs. So that's just, and also we didn't get to see that fight. All we saw was Verity getting her ass beat by this bitch that's like 87 years old. Like, okay. So, we have to talk about a couple of things here. Here comes some sex shit, okay? Now, first of all, my favorite part of this book. Okay. I feel like I did not mention this part. Very quickly, when Verity gets to this house, her and Alex end up engaged. So, they're trying to, like, rush the wedding. They're like, oh my god, the wedding's gonna be in fucking 3 weeks. Oh my god, all this shit. Okay, so Verity, the main character, never sleeps. Like, she is literally wandering this castle every single night, all night. Like, and then she's like, I'm so tired. It's just, so there's all these, like, secret passages and shit. So she finds one, and she goes into it, and it's like a underground sort of hall, but I'm feeling like it means a hall is in, like, a room. Anyway, it's got a bunch of bookshelves. So she starts pulling books down, and some of them are diaries written by Gerard. Or notebooks or something, okay? Notes on research, okay? If I were in this house, and I had not yet figured out, like, the eugenics bullshit of it, but I suspected something weird was happening with the plant stuff, I would have been interested in that. But instead, because this character is one of the dumbest bitches, she puts that back and she pulls out another book. Now, I'm imagining, I don't know. You know, in, like, old Greek pots, or there's, like, Egyptian sorts of, like, murals of, like, orgies. In this book is printed one of those. And so it describes it, though, as horrifying. And there's a part where she says something about the final thing she sees before she closes the book. And I quote, "It's a terrifying phallus." Which makes her shove the book back on the shelf, fuck the research, the journals, all that, and she runs away. Okay. First of all, is she not about to get married in a couple of weeks? That's such a weird take for that. And then for her to be like, no, I can't go down there with the terrifying phallus book, regardless of what's probably in the other books around it. Oh my god, that was my favorite part. Absolutely, hands down, the best part of this. So, okay, but we also get into some other conversations that are sprinkled in throughout the book. And we're talking about how they're going to need, Alex and Verity are going to need to produce an heir. However, since Alex's accident, and hence the reason he's in a wheelchair, he's not positive on, like, his fertility status, right? Which, that's understandable, but it also seems to imply, without ever outright saying, that there's a possibility of erectile dysfunction. Now, back up. This kid has been paralyzed since he was 4, and he is 20 now. He would know. Okay, I promise you. Please! God damn! Alright, so there's a lot of talk about this, actually. A lot of, like, worries and things like that. That one part of it is just so weird to me. Like, why are we pretending like this man does not know? Stop. Okay, so at the very end of it, everybody's dead. Fucking Alex is all apologetic about all this shit. They go ahead with the wedding, even though, like, nobody's there to see it. It's just... Okay. So, my second favorite part of this book is the fact that we have had a lot of discussion about fertility and things like that. And when I had looked up reviews after, this is a young adult book. I don't know why that makes it so funny, but what the fuck? I feel like we could have just left all of that out, probably, and moved on. Anyway, his dick works fine, okay? Because we got a little fade out sex scene, which is my favorite kind. But here's the worst part of this book. The best part was the terrifying phallus drawn in a book 2 weeks before this bitch gets married to someone with a terrifying phallus attached to them. At the very end of it, where I don't know, they're married now and they're just sitting there, and like all of a sudden Alex has been placed on like this couch or something, and he absent-mindedly crosses one leg over the other. Are you serious right now? We went this entire book, the only thing I think that was handled pretty well in this book was the fact that Alex was in a wheelchair. And then we go right ahead and magically cure it at the end of the book. Why? So that was the one not funny part to me, is it set up for a fucking sequel. The Fire brother fucking, his body was being prepared for it, like being put in the family tomb or whatever, and the lady that was like preparing the body and like this epilogue is like, oh my god, this guy's still alive. So okay, obviously there's gonna be a fucking sequel, but like, why can Alex not continue to be a functional character? Like, I feel like I expected this. I was like, there's no way this bitch is gonna mess this up. And she did. Okay. So, I guess what I'm trying to say is, I hated this. For a lot of small reasons, I think. But most of all, the sudden cure of paralysis was really a fucked up ending, I think. And not in a good way. Alright, so, sorry this video has been way longer than I meant for it to be. Yeah, I mean, I guess if you're still here, thanks for watching. Let me know if you want to see more reviews of fiction books that I'm reading in the future. I mean, I am perfectly capable of, like, you know, marking specific passages to prove my point. This one I didn't even think of it until after. I was like, damn, maybe I should tell people about this shit. But, alright, thanks for watching, bye.